Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Growing Social Now. This is your host, Barbara Rozgonyi, and this cast is produced for you by Corey West Media. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Elena Kacan, and she and I have been crossing paths at Charlotte's social media marketing circles. I'll see her on the stage or we'll be sitting in the audience. And I happened to sit next to her at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, wow, it'd be so fun to have her on the podcast because it's really been exciting for me, Elena, to watch your career progression. It's only been a couple of years, but wow, you have taken off and flown. So Elena is the community marketing manager at Bloomreach, and she's also the host of another podcast called Commerce Experience. So welcome, Elena. How are you today?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to see you again. I know we've been
Yeah.
crossing paths, so it's about time.
Yeah. So why don't you bring us up to date and tell us where you are right now? I want to know exactly what's going on with you. I know it's so exciting.
Yeah. So I currently work for a SaaS technology company called Bloomreach. Like you mentioned, I manage our
Mhm.
customer community, which includes just finding fun ways to engage with our power users and people who buy our tool and giving them an opportunity to share ideas and share spaces with other people who kind of get it. So, community has been my mission for the last year. But in addition to that, like I have almost 10 years of marketing experience. So,
Mhm.
I've been able to kind of use my experience that I had working locally at Ortho Carolina for 4.5 years and kind of brought that expertise over into the tech world. And it's been great ever since. And obviously, things are, I'm getting to expand my repertoire, if you will, in terms of like what I'm good at, what I like to do. And it's a constant journey, but it's going really well. So I'm excited.
That's great. And for those of you who are not in North Carolina, the week we moved in to Charlotte, our neighbor recommended that if we ever needed any kind of orthopedic care, we needed to go to Ortho Carolina. I was
There you
just
go.
like, okay, well, that's welcome to the neighborhood. And then I was astounded at the amount of marketing you all did. It's so impressive. Everywhere I look, there was Ortho Carolina sponsoring this, doing that. So it seemed like they really they got you in great shape to make a transition. And I love Bloomreach's company's mission. It's to drive magical and measurable digital experiences. So, can you tell us a little bit about like what kind of magic do you use to make measurable digital experiences? What's working today?
Yeah, and speaking of, I think I learned a lot from my experience locally here in Charlotte. Regionally, I worked with Blair Permis. So if you're in the
Yeah,
marketing
good
space, you
guy.
probably know Blair.
Yeah.
He taught me everything I needed to know, and so yeah, it set me up perfectly to kind of transition and just take my talents to a different industry. So currently, we work with e-commerce brands who are selling anything online, essentially, but we're a marketing technology platform that basically captures data and gives folks personalized experiences for their customers. So, say you buy something on Abercrombie.com and basically
Mhm.
it captures all the data. Where did you come in from? Did you come in from like a sale email or an influencer? And it kind of captures your customer data and
Mhm.
helps basically using AI to kind of like spit out really personalized marketing messages. So, that could be emails, text messages, so many other things, but the tool is like super intricate. So we work with a lot of e-commerce managers. And we have two different products. I won't get into too much detail, but a lot of e-commerce managers, a lot of merchandisers would use our tool to kind of better market and give the consumer, which is everybody, a better experience when shopping with them. So I love to think about my role as like kind of empowering people to think about different ways that they can use the technology or the tool. How do
Mhm.
they use AI to be better and create better experiences for their customers? So I've kind of found a little space, and obviously creating community is such a hot buzz word. It's like such a big thing right now. Um, but after the pandemic, I think we're all just kind of craving like, a sense of community, camaraderie with people who actually get it and who use the tools that we use and who are trying to think about being productive like we are. So that's where I've been kind of able to leverage like my marketing chops with my energy and my passion and just kind of
Mhm.
like cultivate like a really fun space to be. So that way we're engaging with them and they're advocating for us in spaces where it makes sense.
Right. And it's just, marketing is so perplexing. So you mentioned two words, super intricate, which is That's what marketers are looking for right now. And I know on your site you have a download with how to use AI in marketing. And I don't know that there's any way we're ever going to get away from AI. In fact, it's becoming more and more part of our lives, which is exciting because it is making life more interesting and better for marketers. So I didn't get to read the whole report, but could you give us a few highlights on how Bloomreach uses AI and how marketers might be able to take those examples and use them themselves?
Yeah, so AI is kind of baked into like all of our technology. It's been around for years and years. It
Mhm.
just recently started to become more accessible for the average user. So,
Right.
obviously if you don't have the Bloomreach tool, you're probably not thinking about how I can use Bloomreach AI because it's extensive. We work with like massive enterprise businesses. So, obviously if you're working for an e-commerce brand, you kind of understand
Mhm.
like all of the tools that you might need with operating with thousands and hundreds of thousands of SKUs. So on a smaller scale, though, in terms of like marketing and using AI, like I've actually taken up teaching, which is so random. But as someone who's always trying to optimize my workflows
Mhm.
and work smarter, not harder, I kind of like developed a little like intro to AI class for marketers with Skill
Mhm.
Pop. And so I love like sharing just different ideas and ways that you can leverage the tools that are available to you. And using it as like an assistant or someone that can help you I always say like outsource things that you either don't want to do, don't have the expertise to do, or kind of want to learn more about. And it can spit out just so many options that it's almost like unbelievable. So I don't think AI is going away anytime soon, but I'm always thinking about how can I empower people to like figure out how to use it better and
Mhm.
utilize the tools for different needs and kind of think through like, okay, what is it that I need help with? And how can I leverage the tools available to make it work. So I think that answers your question, but in terms of like the Bloomreach tool specifically, it's just so impactful the way marketers are able to kind
Mhm.
of put in all of this data and like kind of speak to a person so personalized to where like you were looking at that pair of pants and now you just got an email with that pair of pants on sale for 20% off because we're tracking what it is that you want to buy. When do you typically buy? Maybe we might give you recommendations at the end where you're like, okay, maybe you should match this pair of pants with that
Mhm.
shirt. And I mean, it's kind of creepy if you think about it, but like I think the data shows that, like, we're able to like, we want personalized experiences. Like, we wanna shop from people and brands that get us. So, I think AI is making that a lot easier for marketers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the personalization is so important. It really is.
Totally.
So, how do you take that? And, I know people are really, they're really in love with their brands. And I love doing branding workshops and asking everyone, like, what kind of coffee you're drinking this morning? How did you choose it? Because there's so much loyalty. And part of that is the community that's around the brand. So, how do you develop that community, sustain it without it feeling like, oh, they're sending me another email, they want my money? How do you make it feel like it empowers a person or it becomes more relatable to them?
Yeah, I think that this could go for really any brand looking to build a community, but like find the people who already advocate for you in different spaces
Mhm.
or who have left you reviews or people that have spoken at an event about you or even posted
Mhm.
about you on social media. Kind of starting with your super fans is always a great place to go just
Mhm.
because they're not even being prompted to talk about you, but yet they felt compelled to leave you a comment or talk about their experience with your brand. So, with us, we had 2,000 people in our Slack group or Slack community that had been untouched. Like they weren't really being nurtured.
Mhm.
Obviously, we do a lot of customer marketing specifically to customers for like cross sell and upsell. Like, hey, you bought this product, maybe you could buy another
Mhm.
product. But there were a group of people that were just kind of sitting there, like kind of figuring things out on their own. And I saw an opportunity. I'm like, this community should be engaged with more. So my
Mhm.
team was like, take it, let's run with it. And from there, we were able to kind of like do some research and kind of understand like, what do you want to see from us as a brand
Mhm.
and kind of have it be an open conversation and make it feel like a really comfortable place for them to share their thoughts,
Mhm.
opinions. And like I said, people are like craving that connection. So how can I find opportunities for them to connect with each other learn more about what we're doing. So they're probably in the community because they want to hear about your product updates or they want to hear about your new features or whatever the case might be. So give them that. I mean, it's kind of like give them benefits to engaging with you in that community space. And then also I created an ambassador program. So it was a great way to kind of like identify power users who were
Mhm.
excellent within the tool. They were the champions that use it every day. And I'm like, how can we get your experience on big stages? How can I help you develop your personal brand as an expert using our tool? And how can I put you in spaces where you look like the expert? You're a thought leader. And I find that's like really important for people because when you get validated externally for your work, your internal team starts to see that and they're like, oh, you're actually really good. And your value immediately goes up because of
Right.
perception. So I've been kind of helping cultivate that within the community. And I think if you're any brand looking to build a community, that's really important for people.
Yeah, that is really important. And you and I were talking about developing your own personal brand, and a lot of people just don't really appreciate the value that they have or how it could pay off. So, could you tell us a little bit about how you developed your own personal brand and how that worked out for you and continues to work out for you?
Yeah, I'm actually really trying to lean into this more because I am a person that my feeds are very curated. I show you what I want you to see. And I think lately in 2024, we're going to see a big shift. And I think people have to kind of get out of their own way.
Oh,
I think I've been able to develop a personal brand due to my role very regionally. Like at Ortho Carolina, we were investing in so many community initiatives. And I was working with someone who has an extremely great personal brand that I was kind of associated with him. So every meeting we walked into, you kind of get this recognition, but like I was there for 4.5 years and I took a lot of meetings and it took a lot of time to kind of develop those relationships with media outlets or creative nonprofits or
mhm,
just
mhm.
different individuals. So I say it doesn't happen overnight. I think what's contributed to my success is saying yes to every meeting, which was Blair's number one rule, is like network, like actually build
Every
genuine
meeting.
relationships with people is like first step. And then the biggest piece is like telling stories about what you're up to. Being able
Mhm,
to take what it is that you're working on and talk about it out openly. And I
mm,
think sometimes I'm so nervous, like, what are people going to think? Or like, how am I going
mhm.
be perceived, and I think at the end of the day, like, I have to let that go.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
my commitment to myself to where I can, like, just start actually creating stuff and, like, putting out what I wanna put out and showcasing my personality, my expertise,
Mhm.
because the more I do it, the more rewarded I am. So, why would I not keep doing that? So, I'm always encouraging people to do that because it generates so much growth over the years from what I'm seeing.
Right. I think didn't you do a post talking about how you should really promote what you're doing? I think you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are just so afraid to promote themselves. They'll think that other people are just like, "Oh, look at them bragging again." But if you don't tell
No.
people, no one will know. You know,
Exactly, and I have to remind myself of that because even that's
it's
something I
important.
struggle with,
Yeah.
but taking the time after each event
Hmm.
that I go and do, whether it was, like, a personal fun thing or if it was, like, something that I can contribute to
Hmm.
my career, like, I take the time afterwards to think about, like, "How am I gonna package this up in a way that, like, makes sense?" And
Right.
I do it I kind of convince myself that I'm doing it for me to where I can
Mhm.
go back and look at all the cool stuff that I've done, and when I'm in a place where I'm feeling maybe low or defeated or just kind of like, "Ugh, nothing's going right now," I can go back and I'm like, "Oh my god, no, look at this cool thing that you did and you posted about." I'll spend time, like, just reliving those moments. So, to me, it's worth it, twofold to kind of keep as a keepsake for yourself and your memories and to remind yourself that you are that girl or guy. But also great for exposure because, yeah, like you said, no one's gonna know until you tell them.
Exactly. And I don't think your family will care. I don't know about your family, Elena, but it's kind of like, so what? So you need to have your fans out there, which is really
Exactly.
important.
I had, it was funny, I had someone come up to me at the bar the other day, and they were like, "I've been loving your videos lately, like, keep it up, I feel like you do a really good job," and you just don't know who's watching, and I think
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a great story, and this just kind of summarizes, like, how I've been able to kind of progress in my 2 years at Bloomreach, but I started doing content creation on the side just for fun. And I got asked to do like a event coverage recap for a nonprofit locally, and I posted about it, and I kinda did the behind the scenes, like, "Come with me to
Mhm.
shoot some
Mhm.
content," and I kinda used that as an opportunity to market myself, like, "Hey, I also do this on the side," and my CMO saw that, and I'm not saying that's the only thing that contributed to my opportunity to take over as the podcast host, but I think once she saw that I was willing to put myself out there on video and that, like, I'm
Mhm.
working on all these cool things and I'm a marketer at heart and I embody like a curious energy, I would be a great podcast host to kind of like take us in a new direction with what she had in mind for the brand. So it's smart for companies to leverage talent within your employee base and people who are willing to put themselves out there because the value is off the charts right now.
Well, it is. It really is. And if you can find a company that will let you have the mic, so to speak, then it works out great for everybody. So how do you like being a podcaster? How's that working out?
It's been fun. This is my I've been on as guests
Mhm.
before, so I've had experience there, but interviewing people and then also making sure that what we're talking about aligns with what the company wants to be talking
Yeah,
about from
that's a
a
challenge.
branding play.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a challenge because
Uh-huh.
there's gotta be a lot of approval processes and making
Mhm.
sure that we have the right guests and making sure that we tell the
Right.
story that
Yeah.
aligns with what we're pushing out to the world. So it's a little different than being a podcast host and talking about whatever I wanna talk about. I gotta color within the lines a little bit, but, like, it's been a really fun challenge to, like, figure out how I can be creative
Mhm.
and almost,
Mhm.
like, have that freedom within the framework to just make the show a little bit more fun and a little bit better, I would say. No shade to what it was before, but, like, I think we're just evolving as a brand and it made sense. So it's been really fun and getting to talk to guests. I recorded my first in-person podcast in New York City last
Oh,
week,
fun.
which
Wow.
was really cool.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm usually, like, looking at my notes. I have questions and I have
Yeah.
it's all virtual. So, like, being in person, I had to, like, be on my game. So it was a lot.
Yeah, it can be a lot. And and you're right, just staying on script. Even if you go off script, it's okay, but you have to have a purpose. So with that in mind, what is one new thing that you want our audience to associate with you and Bloomreach after this interview?
Yeah, I think what's really important to me is that I'm leaning into what I wanna be known for. So, I I used to think that, like, you couldn't really do it all. It's like you have one job, and when I was working at my old role, I was so wrapped up in my identity with that specific company that, like, when
Mhm.
I got out of it or left, I was like, "What do I have?" So, I've been really investing in myself and being
Mhm.
multifaceted and very dynamic, and I kind of explained to myself, I'm like, "You're not just a community marketing manager at Bloomreach. You're a podcast host. You are a content creator, you are a
Mhm.
teacher, you are a mentor, you are a leader, you're a curator, you're a consultant. I just listed a ton of words. I don't know if I can cuss here, so I'm trying to keep it
Yeah.
PG. But I do so many different things, and that's actually given me more purpose than any one role I think could. And that was like the unlock for me. So when you think of Elena, I want you to think of like good vibes, positive energy, a marketing strategist, a community
Mhm.
builder, a
Mhm.
host, someone who can bring the energy. And ultimately, like, if any one of those vibes with what you need and what we could collaborate on, like, you've got options when you work with me. So I kind of like that about it now.
Yeah, that's so smart. And I think for anybody who's listening, you might think that you are just one person. You are not your job. You have a
Yes,
lot of talent. So recognize those. Maybe you're not the person who wants to get in front of the camera, but maybe you're a person who is really good at relating to people. And everyone, I think, should think of themselves as a leader because you never
totally.
know how your words, your actions are going to influence people. So, yeah,
You never know who's watching too, and it's
you don't.
ultimately, like, how you show up in different spaces,
Mhm.
like, holding yourself with integrity, like, I met you however many years ago with Social Media Charlotte,
Yep.
and I think I did a class on I can't even remember what the class was, to be honest, but, um, just kind of, like, showing up as my best self then, and then we ended up reconnecting 3 years later at the reciprocity
Mhm.
circles,
Mhm.
and just kind of, like, maintaining the same consistent energy when people meet you is so important. And then you start to build relationships, and then you figure out like what it is that
Right.
they're working on and what it is that you can help with. And I think that
Exactly.
that's how I've been able to build my network here in Charlotte, which is great. I
Yeah,
feel
and
very
it's
proud of that.
yeah, and you should be. It's not just about 1 or 2 events, it's really about you have to think about how long am I gonna know these people, and, honestly, when I started this podcast, it was kinda selfish because I just wanted to talk to people I hadn't talked to in a long time, and I really miss
Right.
done great work together, like, with Sears, we had 330,000 associates, I don't know how many stores, but we launched the first intranet, and it was just really exciting. So it gave me an opportunity to go back and catch up with these folks. And those
Totally.
relationships, they last forever, folks. So yeah, stick with it. So my question for you is what do you think is going to happen in 2024 with marketing? You have any predictions?
Ooh. In terms of predictions, I don't think AI is going away anytime
I
soon.
think that's a
So
safe one, Elena. Yeah, that's pretty
I
safe.
know,
Yeah.
I know that's an easy one, a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But I think that teams are going to lean more into it. And I've even heard
Yeah.
examples of like even schools leaning into it. Like,
Oh,
not,
yeah,
don't
for
ignore
sure.
that it's there and don't ignore that it's a resource that can help you. But like,
Right.
how do we learn how to optimize it? How do we learn how to use it to our benefit? Um, you and I had talked about the fact that I'm moderating a panel coming up talking about
Mhm.
retail, experiential retail essentially, or like creating experiences that people can kind of grab onto. I think brands are leaning into that more and more now than ever, just because, the rise of content creators and
Right.
influencers kind of being the drivers of customer acquisition. Like,
Mhm.
people are listening to people, not brands. So when I think about how marketing is shifting, it's like it's human to human marketing that's going to win. So that's why I'm always leaning into elevating the personal brands of the people in our community and elevating our exec team and their personal brands to talk with the other personal brands that work within the organization.
Right.
Because I think at the end of the day, like, no one wants to feel sold to. So I think we're going to lean more into the human to human connection and personal experiences and personal branding and kind of understanding like you're relating to me, not necessarily to Bloomreach, but you're relating to me as an executive, me as a salesperson,
Mhm.
and driving that home. So those were a couple things that I think we might see a shift in. And like we talked about, just the growth that comes from connecting human to human and leveraging your personal brand. Um, and then I'm trying to think of like anything else, but I feel like those are pretty three solid predictions. I think too, marketing, I think people are gonna lean more into creators and like in-house creators, instead of just maybe marketing teams that are kind of helping create blanket things. So if you find any Gen Zers or anybody that's willing to help you create authentically for your brand, I think that'll be an interesting shift that we'll see. Um, and then I think video is just gonna continue to rise. So
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, but H&R Block has a reality series. It's about dating and, I guess all the challenges, and one of the big challenges is taxes, which is totally off brand, it's these but, it's really awesome. They hired these filmmakers and screenwriters, and so, yeah, you don't have to do in-house. You can do something completely different and fun.
I love
So
that they're thinking outside the box because A, yes, dating is atrocious out here. I can
yeah.
speak to that. And B,
That's
it's like
another
you have
show.
to be, yeah, you have to be more creative than you've ever been before. You've
You
got to
do.
give people an experience that they will remember,
Mhm.
or else you will be forgotten about. So I think that's where the wheels are turning for marketers. It's like, how can I stand out amongst the millions of messages
Mhm.
that these people are scrolling past a day? I mean, like, our attention spans are like next to none. And I'm
Exactly.
guilty of it. Like, if it doesn't capture my attention within the first few seconds, I'm like, I'm out of here. Like, what can I take from this? So I always put myself in the consumer shoes, and I'm like,
Mhm.
would I care about this? Would I engage with this? Because
Mhm.
I don't think so. And that, I think, makes me a better marketer in turn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, well, this has been a great conversation. I mean, we could
Yeah.
keep going and going, but I ask each one of my guests to give us a word of the day. So, kind of recapping what we've talked about so many different things. We talked about how to drive magical and measurable digital experiences. We talked about your transition and growth and evolution that keeps going and going with your personal brand. And we talked about consumer experience marketing. my goodness. We've covered.
I know. I'm like, how can I just pick one word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me think. This is like hardly a word. I'm like just thinking about I think one of my word for this year is sustainability. I want to like be
Oh,
able to like sustain all of these efforts that I have going. But my summary from last year, which I think will help some people maybe listening, is like do it anyway. If you're thinking
okay.
about starting your personal brand, or if you're thinking about asking for the raise, if you're
Mhm,
thinking about um, taking that next step, starting your own business,
mhm,
marketing yourself in a different way, whatever,
mhm.
but fear is holding you back, don't let it. Like, do it anyway. I think that that's something that I had to lean into last year, and it like allowed my career to skyrocket. So that's something I always keep in mind. I like almost want to get it tattooed on.
You
um,
should. Yeah.
but I think it drives me forward, and I think a
Mhm.
lot of times, like I say, I get paralysis analysis,
Who
and I'm
doesn't? Yeah. It's
terrified of making the wrong step,
yeah.
but we've gotta just put that to the side and just, like, keep moving
Mhm.
forward. Who cares if it's cringe? Like, we just gotta go for it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
take chances and you'll stand out. That was a long word and a
Well,
long explanation, but that's
that's
kind of my
okay. I think, it's a great call to action, and for anyone who's listening, just think about it, one thing you can look at too is what happens if you don't, so just go
Yeah.
ahead and try it anyway. And what I found for myself is sometimes I'll try things and it's like I think I'm going to go to Charleston, and no, I'm really in Vegas. You just never know where life is going to lead you, but you have to get started.
You have to
So
start.
you have to
Totally.
start somewhere. Yeah. So where can people find you online, Elena?
I would recommend connecting with me on LinkedIn since this is a
Okay.
professional podcast. I talk a lot about marketing, social media, brand strategy, community building. So if
Mhm.
that's your jam, connect with me there. And I also am on Instagram. My handle is Queen City with 3 Ys.e. And I talk a lot about Charlotte specifically. I haven't yet turned that into like a workspace, but I do talk about some of the stuff that I'm involved in from a professional standpoint there too. TikTok might be a little too, too off the beaten path for this one. You can find me on all the socials pretty much. And I would say like I love to talk strategy. I love to talk brand. I love to
Mhm.
talk
Mhm.
marketing. Like I said, I do a lot of different things, including teach, including consult. So if that's of interest and 10 years of experience in the brand marketing world sounds good to you, like let me know. Let's collab and we can take it from there.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Elena. It's wonderful having you here. And look for the links to connect with Elena in the podcast description. And this is it for now for this episode. Barbara Rozgonyi, Growing Social Now, brought to you by West Media. Thanks for tuning in, and subscribe wherever you like to listen to your podcasts.